So,
They can share Stop and Shop. Stop and Shop is really full.
you know, I think when the fire station's complete, you're gonna see it torn down and it'll become a public park. I don't think Stop and Shop will buy it. I think
don't
we're
know.
gonna end up turning
Stop and
it
Shop
down.
has right of first refusal on it, though.
Do they really need to buy it?
Mm.
I bet if they don't buy it, they're forced into making it a parking lot. So, we'll see how that pans out.
Hey, Fritz.
Hi, Fritz.
How are you?
Hi, Ken.
Hey, how are you?
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, August 7th, 5 p.m. Please join me in a moment of silence for Catherine Flanagan Stover. Do we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of draft minutes, June 5th, 2018. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Draft minutes of June 19th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Quickly, on the landfill, there's a Civic League forum tomorrow, Wednesday, 2 to 4, in this room. Looks like an interesting thing to attend. Marine Department report. Not seeing Sheila, we'll move forward to Natural Resources. Jeff?
I can sum up pretty quick by saying that.
Yes.
Um,
It looks like a full harbor out there.
Yep, we were busy. We're kind of full steam ahead in our field season. Our hatcheries producing and doing things, and they're kind of running. We're dealing with an issue where we're trying to figure out why some of the water is cleared after like 6 days, and are troubleshooting that. But that's pretty normal for hatchery business and hatchery life. Other than that, we've gotten our new full-time employee who's been working and is working out really well. Actually, hopefully tomorrow we'll finish plumbing the new pump boiler tanks that are out on the back deck to kind of increase the capacity of that facility. Barring some works that we can get in. So that's kind of full steam ahead. Everyone's well there. Water quality wise, we're kind of doing some of our regular water quality programming. So Catherine has been out doing all the sampling to KC and Gulf Coast. Out in Nantucket Harbor, all Great Ponds, Nantucket Harbor. They've been doing about a pond sampling today for multiple ponds. So that's kind of underway. We don't get results back from that for about another 2 weeks. We'll get our first batch to kind of know what's going on. So hopefully we'll get that soon. And then a lot of our other kind of more interesting work related to eelgrass and some of those projects kind of kick off at the end of this month into September to do some of our updated mapping and some of that work. The one project that we have started on that we're excited about related to Shellfish. We've been working with Ivana, UMass Field Station, and the Shellfish Association on getting some of the baseline data needed to start doing some level of marking on natural or hatchery-raised scallops. So we're collecting commercial scallops in the future. We can take shell samples or a number of other ways to figure out whether it was wild spawn or a hatchery scallop, to try to get a little bit of a breakdown on what the makeup of that population is, kind of gauge the success of the larval release program, and also get a little bit of a handle on what the natural contribution is, because we'll be willing to bet that the natural contribution is higher than what we usually get credit for. So that's coming this year. Is just kind of like background collection on what the scallops in the harbor are looking like, so that way next year we can put something in for the hatchery scallops that we can pick up from their shell. So that's hopefully something that we're looking to do ongoing for a longer period of time than a projects that are going on that we've been doing for a while with the Land Council and Ryan Mitchell. We've been doing the second year of their pre-crab investigation in the harbor, just trying to get a little bit of a handle on population estimates and numbers in the harbor for green crabs. And then when we feel like we get a better handle on what that number is, trying to brainstorm feasible ways to get that number smaller, as quickly as possible. So, knowing what we're dealing with is kind of the first step of that. So that's a nice one. One of the other projects that we're not directly involved with, but one that you guys would be interested in particular is the Land Council is proposing to do an eelgrass transplant project similar to the one that they did 3 or 4 years ago. That for a lot of different reasons had some issues. The methodology that's been updated, and we've identified some areas that have really nice water quality, and an area that some shoaling removed the last population of the grass to see if the methodology that we've been employing now can be successful, and to try to do a donor site, transplant site, and kind of really dial in that methodology to make sure that if we propose it on a larger scale or in other spots in the harbor, that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Kind of the knowledge gain from the last try that wasn't as successful as this one, with folks that are looking to improve the way they do it and have great success without any real damage to transplant that. So that's coming up in the next month as well. So hopefully that takes off as well. So that's a project that they're doing with Great Harbor Yacht Club. Is funding that project. So, nice to have all these little collaborations and things kind of going on amongst the regular things. But I think that kind of covers our really basic level harbor and shellfish projects.
Any noticeable blooms in the harbor or any of the ponds?
We've definitely had some levels of copladinium around the harbor. We haven't had any reports yet of anything quite as large scale as we had a couple of years ago, where the whole head of the harbor was just kind of covered in that. But I think everyone's learned how to deal with it a little bit better, and our weather's been a little bit more forgiving. I know yesterday and today are not days to talk about that. It hasn't been the scorching hot summer that we really see those blooms get big. Well, leading up to it, our temperatures have been a little bit below the years we've had really big blooms. So hopefully this weather will come and go, and we'll see it. You know, things are still around. Other algae that we have that are invasive, the Lingbia or hydrocoleum, depending on which one it is, where you're looking at your ass, is still around in little pockets here and there. And we'll have a better handle on how much after we do the grass mapping update. We kind of go through all those areas and kind of see the percentages and get some actual data to that. But I know we've had reports of it already, but nothing that's too crazy. Some of the ponds, I've had some algae blooms this year. Humming Pond still is dealing with blue-green-blue. Mike Hatter Pond has probably been our most bloomy pond this year. There have been 4 to 5 significant blooms in that pond. But other than that, it's been pretty tame this year for algae blooms. So, and nothing, fortunately, too harmful yet.
Has Hummock Pond been closed? Or is it just, you guys just know that there have been blooms? Like, are there signs saying,
Yeah, they're in a couple spots. They've been really localized. They haven't spread throughout the pond, so it's not something where down to the southern end of the pond we haven't had anything there. Most of them way out north at those areas have been trying to get posted as best we can. But we look into all of them. We do cell counts. We send stuff off just to see if it's something that's producing something that could be harmful. But we definitely tell people that if you're going to take your dog or your horse or whatever other animal or your kids to the pond, obviously, if it looks questionable, find someone else to go. So that's kind of what we tell people as a general rule anyways. But there's no showing good places to go swimming in. So you're questioning there's possible choices. So nothing too bad. We haven't had any big health advisories or anything like that. So that's it.
and you mentioned a new full-time employee?
Sure. So we were lucky enough, we had that full-time hatchery technician position that had been open for a while. But we had, I don't know if anyone here is a gentleman Willis covered with us, who moved from the elementary school where he was teaching 5th grade over with us, and he was really excited and really enthusiastic to join. And,
Good for him.
he's interesting because he doesn't have a lot of what we originally started looking for in the position. We were looking for someone good at shellfishing. Joe's got a lot of real practical, boots on the ground experience here and in the waters here. It really provides an element where he's been great with school groups that come in and pick stuff up very quickly. Really excited to have him because he's someone that brings a set of skills that we didn't have before. I think can really only enhance the program down there, especially with the ability to kind of tap into his whole teaching experience to bring members of the public and school kids and things down to make it more understandable for people that are coming in and participating. And he's really good at the skills that we need him to be good at, and the other things he's picking up very quickly. So we've been with us now for 2 months, and already is doing projects on his own that Sarah kind of assigns out. He's doing great. He's an awesome addition to
A team player.
Joe is
Great.
So.
That sounds
And
great.
he's another one too. I mean, he's been shellfishing and fishing in Nantucket Harbor, Nantucket Harbor since he was probably,
Wow.
just a baby. So.
Great.
And he comes with housing.
Yes, he comes with housing, which is really the biggest boon of all, but it takes a lot of headaches away from always trying to find people housing and get them to stay, because housing can be difficult. But he has, more importantly, not only does he have housing, he has year-round secure, stable housing. So that is a huge benefit for us. And he's really good at what we're asking him to do. So that's good. I'm sure he'll be here at some point once he's scheduled, but he's working crazy hours right now trying to get up to speed with everything, how it works, and overtime and extra hours, and he's good. He's really good.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
You do.
Jeff, you talked about the green crab investigations that are being done.
Yes, sir.
The land council was telling me that last year they marked the ones that they caught, and this year they're going to be searching to see where if they move around the harbor. That's the only investigation that I know that's being done. Are there more specific things that you can tell us that are other
No,
projects that are being done?
That's the main one that's being done right now, and I think what we're trying to do is get a little bit of a handle on kind of how the population in Nantucket Harbor, what the size and density of it is, and kind of where are we dealing with really localized populations and things where it's just kind of harbor-wide. And I know we see them all over the place, but are they more concentrated in certain areas? And then I think the second step is, if you're really looking into a management program, and this is kind of more what we've been looking at a little bit, is how do you develop a program to incentivize the taking of green crabs essentially to reduce their numbers. I know we worked with Carl Sherwood for a couple of years, and he was catching and selling some. The difficulty with any fishery, and especially a fishery that, I don't think this sounds bad, but a fishery that you're looking to overexploit and really reduce numbers, you have to have some sort of outlet for those green crabs, or the participation that you need to do that is available. No one wants to, I don't think Dakota wants to volunteer 20 hours a week to go catch green crabs just to go throw in the landfill for no benefit to him, or to be paid or do something. So it's something where we kind of explore, are there commercial markets available? Can they be sold as bait for guys that comp fish? Can they be sold as bait for other things? Can they be used in a restaurant application that someone may be looking to make fish stock or something like that? Instead of using the traditional crab, they may or may not use the green crabs to become viable, to have an outlet. So if someone goes out and catches a ton of green crabs, there's some way for them to at least offset their costs of building and doing it, but then also maybe having a benefit outside of the ecological benefit to go. So that's kind of the catch with a lot of these invasive species programs, and you see that with everything from green crabs to the other really popular fish on the East Coast. You see lionfish as an emerging, an emerging targeted species for food applications because there's some spots that are interested in it, but it's difficult to change, difficult to get into. So it's trying to find ways to put that together, because you ask people to go just out of their goodness of their heart and to collect them, you're going to get a really dedicated few that do. But at the end of the day, probably not going to make that significant of that. So it's something where you need to have that other piece to say, we want everyone to go. We want you guys to catch a ton of green crabs, and this is what you can do with them afterwards to pay for fuel, pay for your boat maintenance, pay for your pots, pay for someone to be on your boat, to pay yourself for your time. You know, it's something where no one wants to do it. I don't think it's reasonable to expect. So that's kind of the other half of that. But if you know how many you're dealing with, you have an idea of what level of program you had to need to put together. I think that's something we can do with part of the Shellfish Association and the commercial fishing fleet to really figure out a way to make that work, to get those numbers down. I don't have the resources in our department to dedicate someone every day to just go catch and kill green crabs. Something
And that's the only other program that's going on fairly locally that people are paying bounties just in having the Shellfish Department go out and trap them just to kill them and get them out of the harbor. Of course, like you say, we really don't know how bad of an infestation we have here. They're extremely, as you well know, extremely destructive to not only the grass but to the immature scallops and other shellfish. So it'd be good to get a good count on them. I don't know if the program that the land bank has, the land council has going is actually counting.
So the way it works, it's kind of like scallops, where you make some assumptions based upon what you're catching in the area that you're sampling from, right? So you're sampling from, let's just say, 10 acres within the harbor, and you're marking and recatching, so you know that in the acre that sample is in, you've caught 500 distinct individuals, right? You haven't recaught any, or you've caught 500 distinct individuals, and then you've recaught 200 of those for your total 700, and then based upon your trapping results, you can kind of apply that to the area of the harbor. You kind of move through. It's a really quick and dirty way to do it, because there's no way just to go out and count every single one of them. So you're making your best educated guess to say, based upon the data we've collected and the sampling that we've done, we think it's reasonable that this could be the range of the population. So we do the same thing with scallops. We used to do a lot with spat lines. Peter Boyce was doing it for a while. We were just looking at what was recruiting into spat bags, and then you are applying that number over a larger area, kind of scaling up. The same way we do our larger house and hatchery, where you take a sample, you do the counts, you know the volume of the sample, the larvae, and you scale it up for the volume of the water that you have to get those estimates. No one can count.
But that plan isn't being worked on right now, which you're still possibly developing that idea of counting.
That trapping and recapture is the program that's going on now.
Oh, okay,
One
it
that's
is.
under
Okay, good,
development
good.
is, once we have an idea of, let's say we have an estimate of 20 million green crabs in the harbor, or we have 20,000 green crabs in the harbor, the level of effort to reduce that number to something that's not having a negative impact is different, in the sense that 20,000 is very reasonable to go and maybe to reduce that population by half is incredibly difficult. Take a number that's much bigger and reduce it by that takes a much larger scale effort to do. So you need the first piece to get to the second piece, but I don't think any of us want to have this, well, we have this data, well, now we need to spend 2 years to figure out how we're going to develop it. It's more of a, we're collecting the data, let's figure out what we need to develop the second phase and start that. And then once we have a better handle on the number, kind of scale it appropriately from there. So, that's kind of, it's still pretty early. Second year of data collection, so.
Well, I'm glad to see it's progressing, at least to some point.
Absolutely.
Of course, there's another species of green crab that's coming down from Nova Scotia area. There's apparently a northern European one and a southern European one. And that northern European one from Nova Scotia is starting to work her way down also.
Hopefully the guys in Maine will stop it.
But they have a terrible problem there, of course, as you well know, with the soft-shell crabs. They're just devastating their, clams, soft-shell clams.
So, all of us have problems everywhere for shellfish and habitat and things where, don't really have to, be free and clean, fish free with no issues. Or if there is, I would like to
You'd be out of a job.
Hey,
Okay. Mr. Chair?
good job. Security.
Fritz?
Two things. First, a question. Is eelgrass sensitive to water temperature? In other words, if one assumes or believes that water temperature is going to increase over time as a result of global warming or whatever you want, whatever you might believe, will that be adverse, positive for, or have no effect on eelgrass?
Well, I think the easy answer to that question is, all plants tend to have some temperature sensitivity to them. I mean, obviously, the grass can withstand the temperatures that we have now without great harm. I think the bigger issues come in with, as you see increased water temperatures, some of the more opportunistic species that thrive in those higher temperatures, some of the harmful ones really have become more common. Or some of the other things like that, so they grow on eelgrass shoots, more common. Excess nutrients plus higher temperatures, more algae plus shading in the water. So I don't necessarily think while the plant itself may see a lot of just direct impact. You can see eelgrass. Eelgrass kind of covers a lot of the east coast, and it gets down pretty far. But what you do see are those secondary impacts that cause additional stresses to those plants. So if they're already being stressed from, loss of habitat, water quality issues, light issues, that something else coming in because of the higher water temperatures can probably have a greater negative impact.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily think, if you see the water temperature change on average half a degree a year, kind of for what it is, probably won't see that effect directly on the shoots. But you can probably see those secondary effects more.
Okay. Second is more of a comment. Egan Maritime is, as you may or may not know, involved in maritime education in the public school system. And the high school recently received a grant for internships and that type of thing. I forget who the coordinator is. You may very well know all about this. But one of the things that we were talking about is at Egan was trying to see the areas in which we might be able to foster or help in the area of maritime or marine science or whatever. And one of the issues, one of the thoughts came up would be obviously the shellfish hatchery. And so if you haven't thought about it, I would just simply say there may be an opportunity through the high school, if you're interested, in getting students, might be studying biology or whatever, to help you.
Yeah, so that is actually something, one of our interns, Dave, Eric, and Tara both serve. Dave is actually, I believe, on the board of the program, that's the Opportunity Program, and Tara
Yes.
has worked as an advisor. They've actually moved on to that board, so I know that's something that we actively participate in that program, and I think we are waiting for the rollout to the high school and that to get there to see what level of interest, but I think we are ready for someone from the high school to go, we want to be there, for us to say, well, we'll see you on Monday, to figure out the logistics. So we are ready, willing, and able for that to take off.
Okay.
volunteer with the high school kid.
Well,
So,
Pauline Prosh would be, I'm very happy to talk to if you need any,
Yeah,
questions.
definitely.
And
They-
I happen to be president, so I can help you in
and
any
she
way I
approached us
can.
before, and that's when we got Tara involved. And said, why don't you go with the program you're interested in, and then let's see.
Okay.
I would assume sooner than later we'll probably land someone with one of our programs. We have a couple other programs that aren't directly related to the hatchery that
Yeah.
are available to the school. Hopefully have some local
Yeah.
kids in those too, so.
We're just interested in fostering educational opportunities and career awareness of all aspects of anything that might be marine or
Well,
maritime.
we've seen that a lot of the places that we've been doing programming with, in Boot Yacht clubs, Marine Council, all of them have started to express an interest about, educational opportunities and even summer employment opportunities for people, and that's something that we are very happy to facilitate. So,
Okay, good.
if someone's interested, we will find something for them to do. They can come join the glamorous world of, shellfish, aquaculture, and all this fun things. Scrub tanks and clean and go. It's gonna be cool.
I have a 13-year-old I'd love to send your way, but anyway.
And
Okay.
I think it's something too, though, it would be nice to get a little bit more of that involvement paired up through commercial fishing in the winter, and get some of those kids on boats and see what that's all about, so.
Okay.
We've always wanted to do that.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Peter?
I'm all set.
Good stuff, Fritz. Jeff, are there plans moving forward for the department's building to be renovated?
We're a little bit down the list. We just finished the big building renovation, so I haven't pushed my luck yet, but I'll probably start this funding cycle. I'll probably throw in the other popular request for design funds for an updated office building for us, just so 3 years from now, someone may actually see it and go, maybe. So, would be nice. We'd like to, but I think our building focuses right now are, hatchery's pretty well squared away from, so that one's done. We are kind of pushing and helping foster the idea of that on-island water quality lab. So we've been pushing for that. And I think I've been willing to put off any talk of an office building for us until, frankly, those projects that are, to me, more important than, having a nicer office building. That means that we do need a nicer office building or one that holds everything that we need to and one that's more colorful. But, they can wait. They're bigger picture for us.
Very humbling, Jeff. Thank you.
Everybody else has got a new building, you might as well have one.
No, like I said, we're fine where we are right now. The water quality lab is much more important to get off the ground. And I'm gonna stand up and say, if we're gonna spend, $2 million on the building, totally made up number, don't go over that, that's not a number for any of that, and say it. And it's something we talked about with our, we kind of all feel that that's a better project right now than a nicer place for Conservation Commission files to visit. So,
Very good.
we'll all have to do office building somewhere. They all sign together at some point, but I would love to we've actually talked about getting stuff with having a building that's natural resources and health department together. We have so many overlapping things.
They need some new space too.
Yes, and we both have the same problems that we're bursting at the seams with applications and paperwork. Have two of the smaller buildings going and seemingly growing files and growing program and things to do. And, up here, you can have all of us in the same spot with a nice meeting space that, your guys' meetings, I think you're kind of a little bit smaller, more intimate setting with stuff that's there, with more health could be there, and how the Conservation Commission, and trying to keep all those natural resources, health department things together. Fertilizer advisory committee can be there. So, we'll see. Hopefully down the road, I'll be retired before now.
Well, that's a sensible idea to join the two departments in one
Yeah.
building. Sounds very good.
Separate spaces.
Hmm.
Overlapping though.
Hmm. comments from the board? Public comment? Thank you, Jeff.
I'm gonna sneak out because I'm gonna try to get to the council presentation.
Yes.
That starts.
Any questions for Jeff on any of our other business?
So if you do, feel free to email them in, and
All right.
I'll be back now that we're starting to, can't even say it's the middle of August already, but it'll start to.
Is that meeting in this building?
No, that meeting is down at Athenaeum, so I will shoot my way into the park.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Old business. Town pier, in response to discussion on June 5th, meeting I attended, and might have been some of you there also, where there seemed to be some negative comments being raised about the condition of the town pier, and I'd love to hear from Sheila on this, and we'll wait until she can get in here and talk to her about it. If anybody else has any,
I just have a question.
yeah.
It's not a suggestion, it's just a question. In some areas you see, and maybe it's because there's no ice or whatever, but in some areas they have concrete piers. In other words, solid pier concrete things. Is that viable here, or is that something that's subject to ice heaving? Same thing with roads or anything else. Does anyone know? I'm just curious.
Well, the steamship wharf is a solid fill pier,
Oh, that's right.
and portions of Straight Wharf are solid filled before it becomes the piling pier, and same with Commercial Wharf is a solid fill pier. I believe before the town pier was built, it was proposed to be a solid fill pier that could be driven out on so that it could be used more commercially. At that time, more fishing boats came to Nantucket and probably would have utilized it. But, I mean, they're talking now at this discussion that Charlie Gibson was emceeing. He said there's some major repairs down the road for the town pier. They're talking about, more floating dock versus what you see now. So, in my mind, I think that would be a great idea where the pier is so long to have it a solid fill pier, but I'm sure the permitting process is just very intense.
Just curious.
For something like that, and also is the expense justified? But it's an interesting topic, to say the least.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Now, what were the complaints that there were, if I may ask? I went down and looked at it as you requested, and I didn't really see any major problems, any difference. The only difference I saw is it looked like they strung fishing line along over the piers to keep the seagulls from landing on the dock or something.
Which Sheila said was very effective, and I'm glad she came up with that after several years ago seeing just an uncountable amount of seagulls overtaking the town pier and really making
Shells
a mess
all
of
over
it.
it, yeah.
So not only the excrement to be power washed off in the spring. So she came up with that, and if it's not aesthetically pleasing, so be it. I don't think that was part of this discussion. I'm not recollecting 100% what people were talking about, but I think general maintenance and conditions. It's older now. It's showing some wear and tear, I'm sure, and I think they're holding out on doing anything major. Number one, this damage seems to happen every year. They were talking about adding some type of a groin to deflect what comes from the fuel docks bulkhead. I guess deflects a lot of energy at the town pier. So if they were to be able to add a bulkhead between the town pier and the fuel dock, it may deflect some of that energy and spare some damage to the town pier. But we'll have to, bring that up with Sheila here, and we'll be able to discuss it, more in depth, with her being able to, give her end of things on that. I have not taken a walk down there. Has anybody else?
I have not.
But I intend to before the next meeting, and just make a personal assessment. I think it's good that we all would do that before we do have this discussion with Sheila. Goals and objectives for 2018-19.
We were all supposed to make a list,
Yes.
but there's not many people here, and I think the people that are here weren't when we decided to make a list up.
People aren't here, put them in charge of the committee to make a list. Now, I think the list we had was fairly comprehensive. I think it was just a question of what progress can we make and what more can we do to facilitate it if necessary. I think in many cases it was other groups were working on some of those projects. Green crabs, for instance, you see a couple of different groups working on that. So I don't think that's a case where we've not achieving any of our goals or priorities. We're just seeing that whether we stimulated discussion or somebody else did, there is at least some response in many of those areas, which I think is positive. Whether we had anything to do with it or not, I don't know. But
Oh, that's a good summary, Fritz. I feel the same way. It seems like, when there's something that we're interested in and trying to move forward with it, there's another group we find out that's working on it and already moving forward. So that's a good summary. Peter?
I just think we should maybe just check in on it once a month. If we're meeting twice a month, then once a month we see where we are. We don't necessarily have to come with a list.
Mm-hmm.
But I think going into next year, leading up to the period of time after the election, we should be, revising it, reassessing, and getting rid of stuff that we know is being worked on, and and just really focusing on the things that we know needs our work, and things that we know are, things that are going to lead to us making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. We think you should do this or something like that, as opposed to just keeping this thing that floats along from agenda to agenda, and then we keep talking about it. So.
Okay. It's been so long. Gosh, harbor dredging. I don't have any new information on this. I hate to repeat myself, but there was discussion on this at that same meeting where there was some disappointment in the town pier. There was quite a bit of discussion with Charlie Gibson, or he really presented harbor dredging and the issues with permitting and the length of time that it takes. So, until we hear more of a clear report from him, I mean, it seems as though maybe it's possibly some of it has fallen into limbo, maybe with the change of guard between Dave Franzuto and Charlie Gibson. There may be, a different approach being taken. I'm not sure. It's certainly something I'd like to do a little research on, because it sounds like maybe some other towns seem to be able to get dredging done a little easier than we do, but I'm only speculating on that, so I wouldn't want that to be something that's, you know, a positive quote. So, I mean, personally, I feel there's a lot of areas that could use some maintenance in all of our harbors as far as dredging goes. So,
Yeah, especially after the harbor master's report that going up to Wallwinnet is kind of sketchy for anybody now
and also that
with the storms of the winter.
she was
That
having a
insane.
hard time marking a channel for Pulpus Harbor also, which is the top of the list is Pulpus Harbor.
But didn't,
Channel.
Mr. Chairman, didn't during the harbor forum, Jeff Carlson say that Pulpus Harbor is going to be dredged this fall? Isn't that what he said? And remember, I was leading the meeting, kind of perturbed
That's right,
that we
yes.
found out about that, and that I mean that was a revelation to me that that some dredging was going to happen in that harbor this year. So we maybe need to get confirmation on that from somebody.
Yeah, Mr. Gibson was in here and he said something along the lines that there was some kind of problem with how to dispose of the dredging tailings that they planned on putting on the private beaches, but if they did that, they would become public beaches and the local people there, the homeowners wouldn't want that.
Right.
There were all kinds of quirky things that all of a sudden developed and that's why things were put on hold.
But I imagine that the Pulpus Harbor, the amount of traffic it gets, it's a priority,
Yeah.
seeing as how that west side shifted into the channel. And what did Sheila say? At low tide, it's 2.5 feet deep. So we just like to, I wish Jeff were still here. We could ask him confirmation on that or get it from Sheila.
Let me just ask, is harbor dredging a part of is that a federal program? Is it FEMA? Is it just town? Is it Marine Department? Is it Police Department?
So we were told that it was a state-issued permit.
Yeah,
When at one point we were told that permits were granted to us to do whatever dredging we wanted to.
yeah.
And so I think it's just on a state level.
It's a state level, but the Army Corps of Engineers has to also review it, I believe. I believe they have to review the channel that's going to be, or whatever they're going to do.
I couldn't answer that question completely, but I'm sure notification and permits are necessary from all of the above.
That's not, I understand that. I guess what I was trying to get at is where's the oversight? Who has oversight responsibility in terms of harbor dredging responsibility? In other words, most, some areas the planning board has responsibility for oversight for the building department. So selectmen have oversight responsibility for certain areas. Who would have oversight responsibility for harbor dredging?
Most likely the Marine Department, most likely Sheila.
No,
on the
it's-
local
Well,
level.
no, but then it goes back. It goes back up to the police department, right?
Correct. It was Dave Franzutos as FEMA director, not as Marine Department. And now that Dave is retired, the responsibility has been handed to Charlie Gibson.
Not just to make sure that anyone is watching us, not FEMA director, but emergency preparedness for the town.
Okay, emergency.
So
And
thank you for
that's
that
okay.
correction.
And Charlie Gibson took that over.
And Charlie ultimately answers to the chief.
Okay.
So I mean, I would hate to see a dredge come here to work Pulpus Harbor Channel and then turn around and leave. But it sounds like it's difficult for them to stack on other projects because the length of time for permitting and
Okay.
the desperation for Pulpus Harbor Channel to be dredged. So it sounds like if we tried to add on more projects to the dredge while it's here, it's going to postpone the capability of Pulpus being done sooner.
So, if we have questions about what's going on and the status of things, Charlie's the person, the only person who presumably knows.
And you can call here and he'll give you a call back.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done it several times. He'll call back. Anybody else on that subject? Rob McNeil's presentation several meetings ago. Anything else anybody would like to discuss?
I think it'll happen here.
Right, which, we'll cover that in new business. Moving on to new business, did we cover everything in the green crab department?
Pretty
for the
much.
moment, Ken?
With Mr. Carlson being here,
That was a good update.
yeah, and the only thing I want to say is that it seems that with a lot of things here, if we mention something in a meeting or to someone, then all of a sudden something starts popping up. It's like, I was planning on just, going into more discussion on the green crab, and then we get an update already, so it's kind of like you just put something, in someone's ear, and then they take off on their own. A lot of departments do that. I think they listen to us a little bit, and so I'm kind of glad that they are moving along with the green crab thing. At least to get an assessment. On a personal level, as a citizen, we have a invasive species department in the coastal zone management. There's a Cape and Island district, and I'm just contacting them because you think that there's such a prevalent problem everywhere that there'd be some kind of plan on a state level. So I'm just investigating that just to give you guys an update of what I'm doing on my own level. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. I think we should stay on top of it until we find out how bad the problem is, especially because of the fact that they do such damage to the eelgrass and the premature oysters and any kind of shellfish, anything. They move from one food source to another. So, yeah, thanks for letting me get a
No,
chance.
I agree with you, and if, new information is obtained, I think this is the place we should be hearing it, and it is, discouraging that the studying has to take so long, and, I feel inside that why aren't we jumping into an eradication plan? The only thing that Jeff didn't touch on that we've heard before is that they can also be ground up and used as a fertilizer.
Right.
But also, as he said, who wants to go out and, spend half their week fishing green crabs for very little return, if any. So, hopefully some numbers come up and some reports are given, after this season, and it continues to progress. Possible hazardous waste containment solutions at construction sites. Discussion. Here's something that we've been talking about for a while, and Peter mentioned to me earlier when we were putting the agenda together that this is something he's interested in also seeing moving forward, and now we have a meeting tomorrow between 2 and 4 to hear what's happening at the landfill, looking ahead, choices they'll make. I believe the landfill operators contract for operation of the landfill is coming up in the next year or 2 or 3, and thank God they're planning ahead, and it would be very interesting to see what some of the choices are for the future there. But that aside, I think we've had several wake-up calls about the lack of education and the lack of means to get rid of these wastes. And at the pond forum, a woman mentioned that she's been in a lot of basements with her husband working HVAC, and she's seen what's stored in basements. And if a basement's flooded and these things happen to spill into the flooded water, then that's all getting pumped out. And I think having a facility that's more readily available to people would be nothing but a positive effect for our environment, and not only for what are classified hazardous materials, but also latex paint. There's so much latex paint being used today. It's replacing oil-based paint, and it's not accepted at Household Hazardous Waste Day. It's not considered to be a hazardous waste, yet if it gets put in storm drains or into the sewer, all of a sudden it's creating problems. And actually heard a story recently coming from an assistant at the health department who was being shown by an individual how he dilutes his paints that he doesn't need anymore and puts them down a storm drain, and he didn't realize he was talking to the assistant health inspector, and he turned around and told him, "I'll be back." And I guess, you know, he confronted the situation and they're dealing with it, but how many other places is this happening? And more here we have contractors from off island who don't have a home base, and when the job is over, they just simply need to get rid of everything now. They can't wait until every other month of the Hazardous Waste Day. And it would be really nice to form some meaningful suggestions that we could forward to the Board of Selectmen, and you know, but until we see what's happening at this meeting, it would kind of be redundant. We're not going to draft anything up tonight, but I'd like to you know, get the rest of the board's feeling on this, and you know, your own ideas on moving forward. I have several of my own, as far as you know, an actual attendant at the dump every day, and a section like the Take It or Leave It where things can be brought, and also a system through the building department where things are contained on site in a better manner, and all dumpster containers should be labeled that no paint products go into them at all. So there's a number of ways that this needs to be dealt with. It's not just one. So I'll make it a point to jot down my ideas, so that, and if the rest of you would do the same, and we come together at the next meeting, and maybe we'll have enough material to be able to draft a suggestion.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, it's a great idea, and that you, I assume you're going to go to this, and I'm going to try to go. But as we get closer to coming up with some sort of recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, just bring Mr. McNeil in on the loop so it doesn't blindside him in front of the Board of Selectmen. And then we would need to decide, are we calling for a public hearing, or are we just making a recommendation to the selectmen? We want these things to happen, and we have the support, hopefully, of Mr. McNeil. So.
Okay, and I appreciate that reminder. You do it with each one of these, and it means a lot to keep a good relationship with the department heads. So I appreciate that. Ken or Fritz?
I would just mention that planning board is going to be inviting most of the department heads to make a presentation to them about, you know, for instance, sewer, DPW issues, kind of status of where they are that might affect planning. And Rob's presentation hasn't been scheduled yet, but it will be sometime in the next few months. And I know he had expressed at our recent meeting, that he would be very open to having discussions with the planning department, building inspectors department about what might be able to be done. And that's a topic that I plan on asking him to address at the meeting, whenever he appears at the planning board, to raise that issue and see what kind of a discussion we might be able to move along.
So keep us
Mm-hmm.
informed of. what-
Yeah, I mean, it's a ways off, so it's
Yeah.
not, but
All right, you
it'll be an
know,
opportunity to raise that issue.
But the meeting with the department heads is
Yeah, but they're one a
one at a
month.
time.
Yeah,
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've got sewer coming in, we've got, DPW, Health Department. I don't know which other ones we have, but so it'll probably be over the next 4 or 5 months, so it won't be anything immediate.
Well, if you could relay to us.
Yeah, I'll just
Each
keep
one
you.
of those, 'cause I would probably pick and choose, having gone to the harbor, State of the Harbor address, heard the most recent from David Gray there. And so I'd probably pick and choose which ones
Yep.
I'd go to, depending upon,
Yep, I will keep you
time of
posted
year
as
and
to
how
when,
busy.
when that will be, and you can come and, with your list of suggestions and our list of suggestions, whatever it is, and see what kind of discussion it stimulates.
Good correlation, Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Ken,
I'm good. Yeah, everything's good.
public? Thanks for being here. Thanks for enjoying the recap items for next meeting.
Definitely the last one on new business for the next meeting.
Okay. And we'll keep Town Pier on there, in hopes of Sheila being able to make it. Now, you've
Do
got
we want to ask Charlie whether he might
yes.
be willing to come and talk to us about dredging?
Yes. See if we can do that. I'll call Charlie.
Okay.
Peter, you've got August 21st on here for our next meeting.
No, yeah. Oops.
Is that an oops, or do you want to have a meeting?
No, I don't. But
Okay.
I was in my, 2-meeting mode
Yes.
brain.
Well, seeing as we missed July, and I'm sorry for that happening, we'll do our best not to let that happen again. Okay, so our next meeting will be September 4th, which is that going to be the day after Labor Day? It's Labor Day on September 3rd this year?
I think so, yeah.
Must be, if it's a Monday, if
Okay.
it's the first Monday, yeah.
Back
Right.
to work, so to speak.
Right.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Peter, can I keep this?
Sure. I'll print it out for you.
Thank you.
Very efficient, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
It's just starting to get cold in here.
Feels
The
good.
planning board meetings, I now bring a sweater in the middle of the summer.
Oh.
God.
Daughter's home from Breckenridge for a week. Go for a walk on the beach.
Yeah, huh? From the mountains
Seeing her
to the beach, huh?
February.
Really?
She was doing this morning.
Is she working out there or going to school?
Bittersweet. She's working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, bittersweet.
Yeah, she's, it's the time of your life to do that kind of thing, doesn't have a steady boyfriend and,
Right.
she's really not tied down to anything. She's graduated college and she's just doing things that I say, I always support her and say, you're just adding to your resume. There you go. So, she's an on-off concierge,